And Mr. Matt, you have the floor. This is round two, part of round two.
So do you ultimately see potentialism as something that people would use to supplement their, let's say, their religious, any denomination, or do you see it as something that would be its own isolated way of viewing the world?
I prefer that I'm not looking to overthrow any existing religions. I prefer that. I think they're very important, valuable as is. I think it's for those who wish to supplement it, it will tend to enhance whatever religious belief they have. For those who are looking for a spiritual life or a path, it's offered as a path towards life. That's the direct answer to your direct question.
So if someone did believe in like an Abrahamic type God,
right.
Can that be reconciled with the idea that the universe, it seems like if you have a God who directly intervenes in human affairs, does that undermine the idea that the universe is sort of finding its own path, meandering through potential and moving forward?
So Judaism is very user-friendly philosophically. It says, these are the commandments, and there's the precepts, there are quite a few. Beyond that, you can choose the philosophy you want, as long as you're respectful and you can you can finesse it. That's basically how it works. And my first book, Summa 1, uses that as a context. And frankly, I told my family before it was published, 50-50 I get excommunicated, even though it's not common these days, 50-50. But the reverse happened. It turned out the religious, at least those who were willing to speak, liked the book. And we went to the Bard conference, where there was heavily non-Jewish clergy or theologians there, in the mix. I was shocked. My big support actually came from clergy. So how is this possible? Because I skate such a fine line here. So they told me, you solve our problem. Our problem was always theogony and theodicy. Theogony being, what are the origins of God? And theodicy, if there's a God who's all powerful, why is it gross evil? And of course, I wrote the book God and Evil. So you say, so you solve our problem, we'll respect the entire package. So you might ask me, okay, can you articulate quickly how it deals with theogony and how it deals with theodicy? So this is on one foot, right? I'm going to do this because we have to move along. But basically, if we say that potential is eternal, while it can build out to classic Abrahamic God, divine, it can possibly build out that direction, whose core is potential. That's the first step of the two steps. Then, why does this God, Abrahamic God, not fully intervene or block all evil? That's the second part of the question, right? Okay, and that part has two parts. Why is there evil at all? And why does Abrahamic God not counter that evil? Fair enough so far? If this God is so powerful, why is it evil at all?
Well, just why would he ever intervene in any way to, for example, sprinkling manna from heaven to feed people? Why would he do that instead of letting things happen and unfold?
Correct. So the book proposes, and again, Summa theory is applied to Abrahamic religion. It's not seamless. It's not perfect. Not a perfect overlay. I believe it's a satisfactory overlay, but it's not perfect. But the book finesses that particular question, and you're going to like the timing, that up and through the point of the giving of the Torah, 1250 BCE, the interventionist God. And subsequent to that, the God of Israel contracts to give man freedom and potential. Having given mankind precepts to run their lives, the God then retreats. And there are terms in the Bible which I use, including Hester Panim, hiding in the face, which I use in the theory. But I'm telling you outright, it's not a seamless overlay. But in my humble opinion, it's a satisfactory overlay. Fair enough? We're not looking to break down established religions which have their own power, resonance, and divinity. Who knows how they've evolved to this point. We're looking to give to enhance it, to give it more power. My 3 children are all modern Orthodox, for instance. And we at the table they have simultaneously both thrusts, and they're cool with both thrusts. It's not that they're running out to sell Summa Metaphysica on the corner, but we're cool with both thrusts at the dinner table. So we see in practice that both thrusts work. Fair enough. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Shira.
Can you talk more about the tools for someone reaching their potential? You spoke a little bit about support from your community and drive, and I just want to know.
So I'm going to realm now of self-actualization, right? Not my main turf, but it's an ancillary turf. But we're gonna deal with that now, right? Meaning I'm writing metaphysics and cosmology, and self-actualization is like a subset of that, right? Which I would just more have like an observer of human nature's approach to it. But I think that we all want as much feedback as we can get, wherever we can get it. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, tell me what I'm doing right. It doesn't mean you have to accept what people are saying, but you can integrate it. People tend to want to tell you what you want to hear. So you want to filter past that. Please tell me what I need to know. What might I improve? On the one hand, and also, you really want to know 2 things. What am I doing best at, and what am I weakest at? And the things you're doing best at, you want to parlay it. And things you're doing weakest at, you want to truncate. You have 2 battles, advancing what you're best at and beating down what you're worst at. And you have to keep updating. A year from now, those might be different. You hear what I'm saying? And the middle will tend to take care of itself. The middle zone, what you're sort of good at, what you're sort of not great at. But at the extremes, what you're best at, you want to try to parlay that if you can. How can I parlay that? Who can use these talents? How can I develop that? If you're good at XYZ, you might want to Google XYZ. How can I develop that? How can I read up on that? If you're weak at such and such, again, you might Google, how do I deal with such and such? How might I deal with it? Doesn't mean you have to listen to what anybody tells you in print or word. But I tell my kids also, be alert to your extremes. Constantly. Build out on the good. Try to address the weak points. And I would also tell people, in each case, try to approach things from roughly 3 directions. If you have a weak point, try to attack it from 3 directions, not just one. If it's such a weak point, you're a human, you're a formidable entity, right? If at the stage you have a weak point, it's not so simple to get rid of it. Try to figure out 3 directions to attack it. If first you only have 1 direction, keep in mind to deploy another modality. And then a 3rd modality. In my observation life, things tend to roll with 3 modalities, on the good side and on the negative side. If you have a strength, try to parlay it, say 3 different ways. I'm just winging it here, right, when I'm saying 3. But things are not so simple on the upside or on the downside. So try to advance it, a few modalities, and if the weak point, try to attack it on 3 modalities. It doesn't have to be immediately the first day, but have in mind, and you'll see it will tend to work. Actually, it will tend to work. After a year or whatever, you'll see it doesn't seem to be an issue, And on the upside, you advance on a few modalities. All of a sudden, doors might start opening. We've all learned to be patient. In the 1950s, you didn't have to be patient. You threw in dollars on investment, it tended to work. But not the 1950s. 2016. So we all have to be smart, really smart, sophisticated players, and lucky. But luck tends to happen if you're sort of disciplined and focused and open. Listen. If I've been in a tough spot, I say, try to listen like a baby, David Birnbaum. Try to listen if you're open. There's so many stimuli out there. Just listen. People talking, try to hear what they're really saying. Of course, you hear what they're saying, but try to hear what they're really saying, you know. And at the same token, you know, be proud and somewhat bold. You know, I'm Shira. I'm terrific. You know, I will advance, and I'm going to figure out how to advance. Not can I advance? No. Past potential is your lifeblood. It will help you advance. It wants you to advance. It's gotten you born, growing up, yada yada. You're a formidable entity. I can list you 100 things that you do, which every female does, and the male does. It's a long list. You think, you fear, you love, you know. Once in a while you scheme, once in a while you plot, once in a while you do this. You're doing at least a long checklist to what you're able to do. You're a formidable entity, like an aircraft carrier. You launch airplanes, shoot missiles. A lot of things you can do. You're a formidable entity. Of course, you have to want to operate within the constraints of what's possible. You can't deploy all your artillery from your aircraft, from the Shira aircraft carrier at any moment in time. But you have a lot of things you can deploy. So you build out the relationships in a nice, fine way, genuine way. You know, assess. People underestimate how important it is to assess your strengths. Try to say, what are my key salient strengths? Ask your friends, how can I build out on it? How can I parlay it? You don't have to listen to exactly what they say. You know, and you'll see all of a sudden that you might find a path. A path might start opening. Offhand. Okay?
So how do you really sort through that feedback?
Say it?
How do you really sort through that feedback?
Your system will do it automatically. I say people have an inner, I say female species has an inner guidance system, which guy to marry. And I believe all the people of the species have an inner guidance system, what route to follow. But you have to feed it the information. Get the information. Get the information. And your inner guidance system will say, to go that direction. It needs information. It has some of the information because it's part of your system, right? And some people are better at it than others. But you get the feedback. If one thing keeps popping up, then it may have truth to it. If 3 people say you're very intuitive, okay, let's factor that in. If 3 people say, you know, you'd be good at marketing, maybe they're right. You know, if some things seem to be recurring. Or let's say you have a friend who's particularly perceptive in your circle, or the most perceptive. So have coffee with that friend, saying, tell me, what do you think my main strengths are? My 3 main strengths. That person will tend to give you the answer. Ask yourself first, who's the most perceptive in my circle? And then ask them for a coffee. And ask them. As for your weak points, no one will tell you. Ask your mother. She'll tell you right away. You know. And you don't have to accept it, but you can factor it in. Maybe I can deal with that. How can I deal with that? You can't go wrong with neutralizing relatively weak points. How can you go wrong? You just can't go wrong. And all of a sudden, you see, if you start neutralizing 1 or 2 weak points, and you start parlaying 1 or 2 strong points, all of a sudden you're a new person. You've morphed. You're model 2.0. That's the way of the world. You walk in the room as a new model. And that changes everything. That itself changes everything. That's my observation, but it's not as a metaphysicist, it's more of an observer of human nature. Because I'm a private jeweler in my day job, I have to be pretty smart to survive, right? And I have to know which way to place my bets. So we listen very carefully. Our new catalogs are always a result of what our customers are telling us they're looking for. They're telling us, so why fight it? Why should we fight our own customers for telling us what they're looking for? We might be smart, but they're smarter. They know what they want. So why should we fight it? Of course, we have our own thinking, right? But we take it heavily. 2 people now called up for a square cut sapphires. Why should we fight them? Put on our website, put on our brochures. Why should we fight what they're telling us? We try to get feedback. When I was younger, I was not that into feedback. I know what to do, and I did pretty well, but it has limited shelf life. You know, I'm receptive to feedback. You want to filter out people telling you what you want to hear. You tell them, don't be too brutal. Please don't be too brutal. But tell me what I want to know. You know, be alert. It doesn't mean you have to act on it right away. But you factor it in.